Hey there, welcome back to the show. So, this time I've got something I've been working on, just a little side project, a little story. It's just a part of it, it's just the beginning, but that's where things are always interesting. At the start. At least we hope so, I want to catch your attention. Now, this is another true story. This is based on my nearly 4 years on a remote little island in the Andaman Sea, a little emerald jewel, a little escape, far enough away from the world, and how it changed me. In fact, I've been working on this as a potential book project, something along the lines of an Eat, Pray, Love, but kind of naughty. And again, true and transformative. So I wanted to see what you think. This is the first part of it. Welcome to it. It's called, for now, working title, Happy Endings Ain't Cheap. Chapter 1.
No more Chuck Wow where we're headed, bro.
The man leered at me, pumping a closed fist up and down in front of his groin. Classy. The wooden boat's engine, hulking and bare and coughing blue smoke, spun to violent life. The old Thai boatman scowled and leaned a little harder on the pole, cranking the gas to drown out the ugly words coming from an ugly farang mouth. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for handjobs. I just don't pay for them. Not intentionally, but more on that another day. And that's what this bleeding fuckwit was referring to, since everyone here knows that Chuck Wow is Thai slang for a happy ending. And since we were leaving an infamous tourist island where you could order up some petite Asian hand love for $20 or less in almost every bar, massage parlor, and 7-Eleven parking lot, for this wanker across from me with the slack-jawed, tribal-tatted, beer-soaked mouth breather, I'm not racist, but down under charm, it must have been a goddamn tragedy. Because now, we were charting a course far off the tourist circuit, to a remote jungle island. A Muslim island in the land of Buddhists. No more happy endings, indeed. From my perspective, this was a good thing. I'd spent 3 winters in southern Phuket, and the novelty of all things lawless and lurid had faded. In fact, while the bulk of my friends had dived dick first into the land of smiles in their 20s, I had steered clear. And not because of type A career commitments or Thai prison butt boy fears or the oft-whispered white slave trade bullshit, but thanks for caring, Mom. I just knew that I wasn't mature enough to handle it. You see, I could resist the siren song of cheap booze and drugstore full moon parties and bar-clearing elbow brawls. That stuff was never my jam. But when you're crossing the world to spend several months in a place they call Sexual Disneyland, then you'd better have your head together and your balls on lock, because for a guy like me, that's akin to dropping a recovering junkie on the corner of Main and Hastings in Vancouver with a fanny pack stuffed with small bills and clean needles. Speaking of Vancouver, that's the place I called home for 2 decades up till this point. But I've been bouncing between gigs and girlfriends for years and couldn't justify spending the bulk of my stagnant salary on a concrete shoebox, a few bags of organic groceries, and a few more bags of questionable weed. Van Groovy had rocketed into the top 5 most expensive cities in the world after the 2008 financial crash, and the cubicle barnyard contract whoring was really starting to mess with me. By the spring of 2010, I was a dazed and bloated and rash-covered mess, with visions of tripping face-first into Chinatown traffic or swan diving off the Lionsgate Bridge. A recent ex, annoyed with my penchant for drunken yet strangely eloquent sexting, called me out on my midlife crisis. No house, no steady job, no kids except for the 20-somethings you date. I used to think you had so much going for you, but what have you really done with it? I'd take a long look in the mirror, face the facts, and man the fuck up already, dickhole. This clearly demonstrates the argument for not staying friends with an ex. They know your buttons and tend to push them with grudge-fueled glee in the name of helping you grow. Chick could have just bought me a penis pump and called things square, am I right? But the nasty thought took root. When the odometer rolled over on the big 4-0 that summer, I knew it was time for what the techies called a radical paradigm shift. Within a month, I had sold most of my shit. Within 3, I had quit the main gig and scored a small contract I could work on remotely. And then, by year's end, all cleaned up and with my beloved feline in the hands of another ex, I was off for 2 months of kickboxing, detoxing, and hardcore culture shocking. When I got back, I took that long look in the mirror and didn't completely hate what I saw. The dude staring back was calmer and stronger and had boners you could hang a towel on. It was like I had found the miracle drug for happiness, a youthful complexion, and eye-catching genital veins. 8 months later, I was back overseas with a longer tourist visa. And 6 months after that, the same. The Siamese bug had bitten me hard, and I crossed my fingers that the infection was just a metaphorical one. The last thing dragging me down was the ghost of paychecks past. The hole in my bank account was threatening to spoil everything, but I held out hope. Now, the universe hadn't been shy over the years in fucking me with a barbed wire fist, but every time I was ready to throw in the blood and shit-stained towel, old Uni would whisper in my ear and give me a surprise reach-around. It was as if the combined musk of desperation and single-mindedness could make some seriously crazy shit happen. Just stir the cauldron, bring it to a boil, and sprinkle in the one thing you want more than anything else. And a dash of what you're willing to lose to get it. I watched the Aussie dig knuckle deep into a sunburned nostril and pull some gold free from its crimson-haired prison. He tried to flick the glob away, but it was only half solid. The mucusy bit clung to his finger like an underage Isan girl on the back of an elderly German scooter. As he leaned over the side of the longtail and plunged his hand into the sea, I grabbed my pack and moved towards the bow. The ceremonial ribbons wrapped around the nose of the boat had begun to fade, blending with the clouds and the blue sky behind them as we chopped through the waves. From what little I knew, these strips of cloth had been used for hundreds of years to bless sailors' journeys. I gave them a soft knock for luck and pressed my palms together in front of my chest. The boatman grinned a broad and toothless grin, hunched over to light a smoke, and then pointed to the limestone spires in the distance. The Aussie stumbled out of the cabin and started snapping pics on his phone.
That's fucking sweet, mate. Maybe we can order in some girls, eh? Bet they'd smash good to see this.
Words fell out of his beer hole like queefs at a Bangkok ping pong show. I turned away, sucked at the warm sea air, and closed my eyes. 2 weeks earlier, I'd been flown out to Paris to do some story consulting at a major game company. It was anything for a buck at that point, and I was prepared to eat dirty snails and embrace body odor and even resurrect grade school French if it would help me fill the coffers. And somehow, after a week of clever ideas and bilingual flattery and a charm assault for the ages, I ended up getting offered a dream job. 6 months in-house, 4 months remote work, 2 months vacation, national holidays, housing assistance, medical and dental, an obscene salary in euros, a pouty assistant with a thing for anal. Needless to say, hands were shaken, champagne was popped, and passages were plundered. Their HR rep said my work visa would be processed by year's end, and then they'd fly me back to Paris before starting sometime in February, give or take a few weeks. Achievement unlocked. Midlife failure vanquished. Hallelujah. This gave me more than 3 months to chill out, as I had enough credit to coast for at least that long. The only problem was that tourist season was ramping back up in Phuket. I'd reached the point where you couldn't blow me to stay there between November and March, even if you were one of those flawless Muscovites strutting on Naiharn Beach in a G-string and Santa hat. Because a lack of gag reflex and a bleached asshole can't possibly compensate for the well-armed and Putin-loving spouse you're cuckolding. But I guess I'm just a prude like that. I'd been scouring websites and asking my network for fresh location ideas for weeks. I made it clear that I wanted something off the main circuit, i.e. not on Krabi or on PP or Rayleigh, etc., but clear of the danger zone, i.e. not by the jungle meth factories with trigger-happy strongmen at the Burmese border. It had to be low-key, sabai, as the locals say, and cheap. Decent Wi-Fi was a given, and less rain would be nice since it had been a particularly brutal monsoon season. We're talking palm trees parallel to the ground launching coconuts at passing scooters kind of weather. Oh, and there had to be cats. I loved me some kitties and found them to be a fine replacement for dating considering I'd been on a self-imposed fast for months. An Aussie-Italian chef who ran a funky little restaurant in Rawai with fine seafood and finer expat cougars in search of coke was the one who told me about the island. I trusted him because he was more or less transparent with his cultural shortcomings, and this is one of the few confirmed upsides of dealing with an Australian.
Aussies are pigs, but mostly harmless, mate. Italians are historically more dangerous pigs, but make up for it with their cooking, mommy issues, and cobbling the finest shoes.
Like me, Bruno hated tourists, even though his businesses, legitimate and questionable, depended on them. He was also generous with the vino, grilled a mean sea bass, and had a lovely Thai wife who was quick to remind you who the real boss was.
I think you'd like this one,
Bruno had said, unfolding a map and circling the green speck with a pen.
It's quiet, friendly, the internet's decent, the beaches are a bit rocky so the all-inclusive crowd steer clear, and the partiers got bored quick because of the whole Muslim thing. Fishing Muslims, not the ones that go boom, who don't tolerate the whoring and the all-night rave bullshit. And yes, the place is crawling with cats. The wife and I spent a week there last year. Pussy Island indeed.
Bruno had raised a glass before reaching behind the teakwood bar to pinch his wife's thigh.
No pussy for you, mister, and definitely none for him,
Pam shrieked, slapping Bruno's hand away. Pam wasn't her real name, but most Thais adopted abbreviated nicknames for the sake of us tourists. Pronouncing their full ones required a level of tonal acrobatics that'd make a fruit bat jealous.
He get too much puss already, which is why my ass hit on Saturday night.
Pam had shot me a look that was half blame and half flirtation. I'd only been with one local girl and it just happened to be their previous manager. I'd never pursued Thais before, not because they were unappealing by any stretch. It's just that I had witnessed all the drama and money scams and jealous, methed-up insanity associated with the girlfriends of Western fighters at the local gym. But then the restaurant's manager, Na, had made her play for me one night after too much vodka Red Bull and a competition to tie cherry stems in knots with our tongues. Curiosity and surplus testosterone got the better of us both, and 4 hours later I had learned what many Farang men learn. The unholy trinity that lured the real weaker sex back to the strange land of sun, sand, and skin. Tight, talented, and ting-tong, which is Thai for balls out crazy.
I am done with that, boss, I had said, folding up the map and standing to fish out a few baht from my shorts for a tip. I just want some peace. Yeah, right, she had snorted, circling around the bar and pulling a criminally thin shirt taut over ample and braless breasts. The only piece you want is piece of ass. Her hands had lunged around my waist and taken firm hold of my buttocks. She lifted and separated and kneaded them like a repressed baker. Need more squats, you getting soft, old man. I had raised my hands then in surrender, looking to Bruno with eyes that bulged in mock helplessness. Don't look to me for help, buddy, he drawled, draining his spit-smeared glass and sparking a Marlboro. I gave it 2 kids already. She's probably just angling for better seed whilst waiting for me to buy the farm any day now, I reckon. I had looked down at Pam then, at this mature and married woman whose head barely reached my nipples. I felt her squeeze my ass and press her tits into my belly. I watched her bob her eyebrows up and down and smile the kind of hungry smile that had snowballed into regrets too many times before. This seed is retired, I had said, pulling free before any bulges betrayed me. I'm an old man now, remember? A rocking chair overlooking the sea with cats and quiet would not be the worst way to die. I slapped down my tip, hugged them both, and wobbled towards the street. You not old man, Pam had crooned as my flip-flops slapped on the pavement. You good man. Why not share if it make everyone happy? No problem, Buddha and butterfly, not so different. I think I waved goodbye as I dodged scooters and tuk-tuks and raindrops, and resisted the lures of half-naked bar girls gyrating in neon hula hoops beside well-tucked ladyboys dangling from stripper poles that flanked the lane, and skirted the man frying unholy wads of chicken rice beneath the flickering streetlight, and flip-flopped straight back to the concrete box with the sickly palm out front, the place I had hung my hat,
since returning from the good news in Paris. Cold shower for the swollen pores, liter of water for the looming hangover, Wi-Fi for mail and Facebook and ferry times, packed bags for peace of mind. Things were about to change, and that always made me nervous. As I said, change mostly meant a fresh way for life to fuck me with a cactus and then swipe my credit card. Didn't matter if it was a person, a place, a pad thai, or a pussy. New scared me shitless. But sometimes, the devil you know can be worse. Much worse. Especially if he's 43, drunk, and leering back at you in the mirror whilst jacking off with cooking oil in a third world flophouse. I figure that's when it's time to put on some pants, punch that devil in the face, and get on the goddamn boat. So there it is, ladies and germs, kittens and cats, the first half of Chapter 1 of Happy Endings Ain't Cheap, which was a working title, sure, but the original working title for this project, funnily enough, was, and I'm not shitting, Buddha and the Slut, which, as I scribbled it down months ago, actually it was the beginning of this year in Greece, when I was first playing around with this microphone I speak into now, I thought, hey, good idea for a book, but that name would be great for a podcast. And the rest is history. Most of you seem to dig it. Some of you really, really hate it and are deeply offended by it, and that's okay because it's not aimed at you. It's not about you. This is a moment where I get to be narcissistic and solipsistic and say, it's all about me. I am the Buddha, and I'm the slut, and I'm working on resolving both, and that's what these stories are about. So thanks a lot for the love and the support. With the holidays coming up, I hope you consider little stories like this that are free for your ears and your hearts. Gifts. Gifts for the holiday season and beyond. If you're getting something from this show, let me know. That would be the biggest gift in return. Thanks a lot, and you'll hear from me soon.